peppery, salty, smoky, Texas style spare ribs.
What's up, guys? I'm Cooper Abercrombie. I own and operate Bar-A-Bbq here in Montgomery, Texas. We're a Texas Monthly Top 25 Best New Barbecue Joint. We're also a top 100 restaurant in the Houston area by the Houston Chronicle. Today, I'm going to show you how we cook our pork ribs on the backyard Goldie's offset.
Now we use porch spare ribs. Why spare ribs versus baby back or St. Louis? There's a little bit extra trim involved, but A, we make sausage with all the trim, and B, it's a little bit cheaper from a restaurant perspective. So we don't mind having the excess trim. If you don't want to have the excess trim, guys, you don't want to deal with it, just buy some St. Louis cut, okay? It's going to come already pretty much trimmed up for you. Now the first cut is just removing that chine bone. Then we like to take the first bones off each end and just take those off. There's normally not a ton of meat on those end bones. Then we're going to remove that flap and skirt off the back. We'll then flip it over, clean up the edges, make sure all of our corners are not sharp. We'll round those off, and then it's time to season. All right, now when it comes to seasoning, we keep it super simple. We use 16 mesh black pepper and Rio spice seasoned salt. Now, when it comes to the seasoned salt component, you can use whatever you want. I'm going to leave the ones that we use every day here at the restaurant down below. But this is where you can put your real personal spin and flair on this. If you use chicken bouillon or beef bouillon, or there's a million different flavors, I've heard of every different salt profile under the sun at this point. Use what you like and what you think is going to make the best tasting rib that you can. There's only really a couple principles you have to abide by when seasoning any protein, but especially ribs, is you want to make sure you season the non-presentation side first. So always season the back side of whatever protein you're cooking first, then flip it over and season that presentation, that pretty side last. So that way you don't smear or rub off the seasoning. And when you do season, guys, make sure you season really high and at a really consistent and even pace so you get a nice even spread on that seasoning. Now, because I'm about to throw these on pretty quick, I'm going to go ahead and hit these with a quick water spritz just to kind of help activate that salt I've put on there so it won't come off later during the cook. Gonna be rocking a real traditional fire today on the M&M Goldie's pit. 2 logs on the bottom, 1 log on top. We're gonna keep our stack shut about halfway today. We're looking for a target temp of like 175, 200 for that first hour, hour and a half. Then we'll bump to 225 later in the cook, 250 a couple hours later, and then we're gonna finish about 275 to wrap these things up. At this point, it's time to rebuild that fire. We're going to keep rocking that same traditional kind of fire set, 2 logs on bottom, 1 over the top, keeping a nice, chill, somewhat smoky flame. We'll clean up the smoke a little bit for the last probably hour and a half of the cook, but at this point, we're rocking 250 until we're just about ready to pull these and wrap them. Okay, we've hit about that hour 5 mark. We've been rocking about 275 the last hour, hour and a half now, towards the end stage of this cook. I probed them. They're sitting about 195, dead middle of the rack in between the two bones. Color is looking fantastic. We're going to go ahead and get these wrapped up. When we wrap our ribs here, we like to use 2 sheets of foil just because we're going to put a good amount of our rib glaze on there. That'll help make sure that if we do have a small hole in the first layer, we have that second layer as backup so we don't lose all those nice juices and glaze. All right, so we're going to wrap these immediately and get them in our rib glaze. As always, guys, I will have the rib glaze recipe in the description down below. We are charging for it, guys, because it did take me almost a year to create the recipe. It's only $5. It's going to save you a ton of money over time versus buying a $15 bottle of sauce every time you go to the store. Plus, it supports the channel and supports us at Bar-A. We let these ribs sit for about 45 minutes to an hour on the counter until they came down to an internal temp of about 150, 145, and they are looking absolutely gorgeous. This is one of my favorite proteins we cook here. It's one of the hardest proteins to cook consistently, though. It has such a small window compared to a brisket where you can go over or under, and ribs are really, really challenged to dial in every single day. But man, I would say I think we nailed this cook.